Hi, good morning.
Hello.
Or for you, it's afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's evening.
Oh, it's very, here, I'm turning the volume up.
Great. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We can start, I guess. Um,
Okay.
why are there more and more hotbeds of instability in the world now? Were there any hidden preconditions for all this?
I think the instability is primarily because of U.S. Hegemony. I think their global interests are dwindling, and they're making a concerted effort to try and maintain their hold on countries which are increasingly pulling away. So the inevitable result of countries moving away from U.S. control is going to make them, by them I mean the U.S., both overtly and covertly make attempts to improve their control financially, militarily, and with their client states, as we can see in countries like Ukraine and now as we see in Israel, taking a proxy role in maintaining their control and also to weaken their enemies.
Human lives are now literally devalued. Civilians are suffering from military conflicts. Can politicians solve international issues with diplomacy?
Well, that depends on who we're speaking about. If we're speaking about countries that are outside of the US and the Five Eyes sphere, then yes, diplomacy can improve relations and um, lessen the risk of civilian casualties from wars of global domination. You know, when it comes to diplomacy, we see that the West is not very interested in diplomacy. What they're interested in is control. So they try to be dictatorial in this. They are very paternalistic, claiming that they have moral and ethical superiority over everyone else. And unfortunately, what we see as a result of their actions is that they prefer gunboat diplomacy over actual diplomacy. So there are threats, there are sanctions, there are vilification of certain countries in order to have a number of countries be on the sidelines, so to speak, and have the only conversations in the news, primarily in the West, around, we're doing the right thing. And I think that they weaponize the Western civilians wanting to do the right thing. So by controlling the narrative, they're controlling the idea of what is good and right, and uh, they hide the actions that they take that are not good and right, that are the very same actions that they try and blame these other countries for. And in that way, they're really controlling the global opinion of what is good and right, who is good and right, and what actions should be taken.
Do they have to start military action?
Do they have to start military actions? Well, when it comes to military actions, we see that they try to take a herd approach, right? So they try to get the international community on board, and in order to make it seem that it isn't certain countries that are pushing this agenda. It's a global initiative or um, a coalition of governments who are working in concert for the betterment of humanity or humankind. We know that that's not the case, though, because primarily these countries that take the proxy role on, or organizations such as NATO, um, they are funded, given arms, or sold arms through the United States, through the UK, France, and other entities like that. So when it comes to whether or not they have to use these conflicts, I think the conflicts are not a result of humanitarian crises. They are crises which are created for the effect of pushing their global agenda, which is domination.
Is nuclear war possible? And if so, how can it be prevented? Could Iran attack Israel or the US, or will it never come to that?
Well, that's an interesting question because when we look at nuclear war and the threat of nuclear war, have to look at what different countries' doctrine is on nuclear war and whether they would be one to do a first attack. So when we look at countries like Russia, they don't have a first attack policy. They are a response. So there would have to be a direct threat to Russian sovereignty in order for Russia to respond. Countries like North Korea don't have that doctrine, so it is possible for them to take that stance if they were to be threatened in a way which is not one that threatens their sovereignty. And then we have countries like China, Iran, Pakistan. Um, that's a different scenario, I think. I think the threat of nuclear war, when it comes uh, right down to it, is really only about the countries with the first strike doctrine. So that would be countries like the US, or as much as they like to deny or not talk about their nuclear weapons programs, Israel. So I would think it would be far more likely that countries like Israel or the US would strike first. And we have historical precedent for this as well. We have, you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki as examples of the U.S. first strike policy. So, um, bringing Iran into the conversation really only comes into the conversation when we're discussing Israel. Um, Israel and Iran do not have good relations, and they have openly spoken about their wish to destroy the other. So, if Iran was to attack Israel, would it cause a nuclear war? I don't think so. I don't think that Israel would initially use that final uh, solution as their response unless they were about to be overrun. And I don't think that that's a possibility in this scenario.
The media is heavily censored in the US and Europe. Is this the case?
Well, yes, absolutely. Um, a good example of this, if you were to look at, there was something called the Integrity Initiative, which was a UK FCDO, which is their foreign office, and it was in combination with MI6, and they had a program a few years ago, and it's still ongoing now. One organization which is attached to that, which was revealed, is an organization called Bellingcat, and you might be able to find some information online about this. There was a leak from the hacktivist organization called Anonymous, which was called HMG Op Trojan Horse. And this revealed that the US, the UK, and other Five Eyes countries were working in concert to use NGOs, certain media personnel, and certain influencers. Um, They also use charity organizations in order to infiltrate other countries and push a pro-West agenda. And they vilified certain countries. You may know this or not, I'm not sure. But there was a long process of vilification of Russia. They did it in the Balkan regions. They did it in, uh, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. It was also done through the Caucasus region, all of those countries, and they use different NGOs and fact-checking organizations to vilify Russia. They also push the pro-West agenda in Lebanon and Syria. And if you look at the different global events that happened, um, and by global events, you can look at Libya, you can look at Syria, and the coalitions that were used, the military coalitions that were used against them. These are all backed by Western control of the media to push a certain narrative around why these things happened. And as I mentioned earlier, the entire purpose of this is to vilify certain countries and keep them in check. It also pushes, well, I mean, when it comes right down to it, this is all about resources, really. They want to be able to control which countries have access to which resources and be able to use their Western corporations to bring different final products to market and exploit the resources of these countries. So in order to do that, they have to have pro-Western governments in place, right? So when it comes to your question, when it talks about media censorship, we've seen the largest platforms for dissemination of information are corrupted. And by that, I mean they are controlled and they push these narratives as well. And it's even done in academia as well. They use different political science programs and different student body initiatives. Uh, they push these certain agendas through and talk about it in a certain way in order to indoctrinate students. So over time, as they go out into the world and become media personalities themselves or involved with politics, they're pushing those agendas.
Freedom of speech in the world is in a state of territorial segregation. One country with state-controlled media has one truth, and another country has another. Is it possible to create a unified system of truthful information all over the world?
Um, I think that the answer to that really comes down to the willingness of the citizens of each country to question the stories that they're being told in the media and the media being stenographers for the government agendas. Um, in order for us to have true free speech, we have to have journalists who are not going to be pressured or bought by governments. Uh, there needs to be a media that is free to question the authorities and to, without being censored or threatened with legal action, tell the truth of what it is that our governments are doing in our names. So if people in, let's say, France are being told that if they say certain things, they're going to be uh, face fines or jail time or both for questioning the narrative around Israel, then we know then that this applies not only to the average citizen, that it also applies to the media. And that is stifling dissent and it's stifling the truth, which we cannot allow as citizens. The only thing that we can do to fight back against this is to speak to our elected representatives and engage in civil disobedience, which means protest.
Thank you for sharing your views. We're done.
Okay.
Thank you for
Well, thank you so much for
participating.
having me on. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.